Hi, this is Dave, and before we get to the show, I wanted to ask you a favor. One of our goals this year is to grow the show so that What Does Star Wars Mean to You reaches more listeners. And that's where we're asking you for help. And it's really easy. Wherever you listen to us, please hit that subscribe button. If you're liking the show, give us a 5-star rating and review on the platform you listen to us. We make a lot of fun of the algorithm and the smash that button thing, but it really does help us get noticed by new fans. And if you want to join in on the conversation, find us on social at Star Wars Mean to You. That's Star Wars Mean, the number 2 in the letter U. Now, let's chat some Star Wars. Hello there. This is Dave, and you're listening to What Does Star Wars Mean to You, the show where we talk to all kinds of fans of Star Wars, from industry insiders to indie artists, from mega collectors to obsessive mythologists, to find out how Star Wars impacted their life. Here's the thing, there's a lot of ways to look at Star Wars, and it's all from a certain point of view, and that point of view is yours. And let's face it, we all love what we all love about Star Wars. I believe that hearing someone talk passionately about what they love can open your own mind to new ways of thinking about things. Also, it's just fun to talk Star Wars. So I want to change the conversation from what is right or wrong about Star Wars to what does Star Wars mean to you? Today, it's episode 12, part 2 of my conversation with Camila Quinones. To give it some context, this was recorded in January of 2023. Now, Camila works with some of the most interesting content being created today. She started her career in the mailroom of CAA and quickly worked her way up to assisting Jonathan Nolan on such projects as Reminiscence and Westworld. In part 1, we talked about her Star Wars obsession and that the first Star Wars movie she saw as a child was Attack of the Clones, that she has read about 60 of the current Disney canon books during the pandemic, and how she got to visit Disney World's Star Wars experience, the Halcyon. The episode is worth listening to just to hear her absolute joy of that experience. So hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. If you're liking the show, please give a 5-star rating and review. And tell me what you think on Twitter and Instagram at Star Wars Mean to You. That's Star Wars Mean, the number 2 in the letter U. And now part 2 of my conversation with Camila. Okay, now I've got kind of a hard question for you, but I've got to ask it. As a prequel fan, do you get a lot of crap for incredibly loving the prequels? You're in rooms with, I'm assuming, a lot of people my age who grew up with the original trilogy, who may have opinions, whether they're right or wrong, they're usually wrong, about the prequel trilogy. Do you find yourself defending the prequel trilogy?
I have. I never feel attacked personally, or Good. I think the times when I've ever felt like not attacked, but like a lesser Star Wars fan is because I don't have my parents introduced me when I was a kid, and I've been like, I grew up with the Clone Wars and I grew up with this and that, and I've been watching it my entire life. So that's the only times when I ever feel kind of pushed on the outs, but never because I'm a prequel fan, because I'm very adamant about how much joy it brings me. And I think that I think what I'll get more crap for is I stated this opinion the other day at work that and you also might hate me for this, but I personally think Force Awakens is better than A New Hope. And I would rather watch The Force Awakens than A New Hope. And that got me a lot of, what? Are you kidding me? What are you saying? So if I had to rank the trilogies, I would say prequel trilogy first, sequel trilogy second, and then original trilogies last, which that ranking would get me probably a lot of crap. And also, if I were to say that Empire Strikes Back is one of my least favorite Star Wars movie, that also will give me a lot of crap. I know. It's divisive.
Yeah, right? I will say this, it's a valid opinion for sure. I think when you come to a not a genre, a franchise, whether it's the MCU, Star Wars, Harry Potter, the things that set in first are the ones you see first.
Yeah.
And also look, like when I saw Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back, there was nothing like it. Just nothing. And when you grow up in the 2000s, if you're a child of the 2000s, it's a very different world. There's a ton of special effects, like X-Men, Neo, and The Matrix. There's all these things that are kind of outdoing the original trilogy, just effect-wise and story-wise, that when you get to the Phantom Menace, of course it stands out differently than Star Wars is going to stand out to you, just because you're inundated with all the special effects and all this kind of mythology storytelling that has been building since Star Wars. Your on-ramp is a very different on-ramp. I had another genius point that I lost, and who cares? I think it's great to hear that you don't feel attacked personally, because I don't think you should.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see the joy in your face when you just talk about, the Clone Wars and Amidala's speech and talking about Chewbacca. And it's just I love how it's all part of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to love your section of Star Wars, and we should encourage that more. I think, I have some probably unpopular opinions. I think that what happened to Luke Skywalker from a certain point of view makes sense in the sequel trilogy. And if you look at, what George Lucas's whole intention in a way with prequel and original trilogy being a tone poem and rhyming in certain ways, that what happened with Luke rhymes exactly with what happened to Yoda and Ben Kenobi. I can't imagine coming to the prequel trilogy first and knowing Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then jumping 20 years and going, wait, that's him? He just hung out in a desert? This guy who took on Gundarks with Anakin and fought Sidious, and no, he didn't fight Sidious, I'm sorry, Grievous and Dooku and all these other people. He just hung out in the desert? Really? That's not my Obi-Wan Kenobi. So that stuff echoes, and it definitely, I guess what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way is all the opinions are valid because, like Ben says, from a certain point of view, it's kind of true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Except for Empire is the best one, so I can't let that one stand.
Yeah. No, that's
No.
that's probably my most controversial, unpopular. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm just saying it's the one I'm probably reaching to the least, which is, oh, that's so horrible. It's either that or A New Hope is what I'm reaching toward the least, which is so.
But it makes sense. It totally makes sense because your Star Wars is the prequel trilogy first, and that's a kind of a different world. Now, where does Rebels for you fit in all this? And I ask because Rebels is kind of that transitional period between Clone Wars and the original trilogy.
I love Rebels. I've seen it only once. And I've been meaning to do a rewatch, but I told myself we need to take a break on obsessing over Star Wars content because we have other things we need to catch up on.
Yeah.
But I absolutely adore Rebels, and I know when I watch it again, there's a high chance. I think overall, as a show overall, I like it more than the Clone Wars, but there are just moments of the Clone Wars that are just so out of this world for me that and again, they're in the prequel trilogy. But with Rebels, I love again, I just love rebellion stories. That's what I spark to the most with Star Wars. I know that there are a lot of folks that's like the Jedi stories is what they spark to, which is perfectly amazing. And that's just what you spark to. But for me, it's like anytime I see a story that's all about hope and fighting for what's right. And I mean, the theme you hear constantly throughout Star Wars, people asking, why are you doing this? And somebody says, it's the right thing to do. Like, that's a good enough reason. So anytime I hear that, and that's just the theme of Rebels, is that this ragtag group of people get involved because it's the right thing to do. And the individual characters I think are amazing. Hera, I absolutely adore Hera. She's definitely one of my favorites. Kanan, I think, is the most perfect embodiment of what a Jedi should be. Because he is able to not let his attachment blind him in a way that other Jedi aren't. The Rebels. Once I do a rewatch of Rebels, which I probably will do before Ahsoka comes out, it will very well probably sneak up there.
I'm a big fan of Rebels. I think the last 6 episodes of Rebels is some of the best Star Wars storytelling.
Yeah.
I also love how Rebels carries on the Ahsoka storyline as a baton, and that baton's handed off to I think was it Boba Fett or it was Mandalorian, I think, where she first appeared, and then Boba Fett too. And then her own series. And speaking into the future tense, what are some of the things coming up in the Star Wars world that you're excited about?
Definitely. All of it. I mean, but that's the standard answer for everyone. I think the thing that I'm actually the most excited about is The Acolyte, Leslie Headland's project.
Yeah.
I'm super excited, again, because it's asking those interesting questions of what was the state of the galaxy that led the rise of Palpatine and the rise of the Sith, and how does the galaxy get to a point where the Jedi Order falls in Revenge of the Sith, and I am looking forward to being able to see the Jedi in this new and flawed light that I'm thinking we might be able to see them in. So that's the project I'm the most excited for and the most intrigued by. I am also a fan of the High Republic. I am enjoying what those books are doing in the world, how they're expanding the world in a different direction, going back to the past, and asking different questions. So yeah, I'm looking forward most of The Acolyte. I am looking forward to Ahsoka. Can't wait for Andor season 2, though I'm sure we'll have to wait another 2 years for that. But I love season 1, so season 2 is probably just going to be even more devastating. And yeah, Mando, of course, it's right around the corner.
Yeah. Just a couple weeks. Well, I guess it's right now it's late January, so it's 5-6 weeks away. Oh.
Yeah.
I keep thinking it's 2 weeks away. Yeah, it will be. It will be. Okay, now here's something. You know what? I think I encourage all fans to do this. Admit when you don't know something. The Acolyte. I thought that took place in the High Republic era. Is that in between High Republic era and prequel trilogy?
My understanding is that it's at the tail end of the High Republic.
Okay.
So it's at the end, the High Republic is coming to a close, and so it's coming to the end of the High Republic. And then I'm assuming setting the foundations for how the galaxy looks like in the Phantom Menace.
Oh, that's going to be cool. It's going to be fun to see that. Did you watch Obi-Wan?
I did watch Obi-Wan, and I did really enjoy Obi-Wan. And when you were talking about earlier about how do we get from Obi-Wan and the prequel trilogy being this big warrior to how he is in A New Hope, it's here's the perfect connective tissue. I think that Obi-Wan Kenobi was a great way to see the connective tissue from Revenge of the Sith to A New Hope, to see the way that he left off and how it truly is a very spiritual journey of this character.
Yeah. And
that it truly is a story about, Deborah Chow talked about how it's a story about the love story of Anakin and Obi-Wan, and being able to see the way that how Obi-Wan becomes Ben Kenobi when he learns how to finally let go of his attachment to Anakin. Because the whole thing is that he's a Jedi and he preaches don't be attached, but yet he's one of the most attached of them all to his Padawan, who becomes Darth Vader. But I also just loved, like I mentioned earlier, the women of Star Wars are my favorite. So I think Reva is one of the most fascinating Star Wars villains we've gotten in a very long time. That turn when you find out that she's became an Inquisitor to kill Vader. And just when you think about all of the implications that go into somebody who was a Jedi, who joined the dark side to kill this person who hurt her friends, and all of the little compromises she had to make while being stuck with the Inquisitors to try and kill Vader, and she's changing herself, and all of those, like, it's just such a rich, it makes for such a rich character study that I hope we see more of her. And then yeah, and I thought Leia was just, as soon as she came on the screen, I burst into tears. I was immediately in love. When you hear, like, you see the Alderaan, and I was like, oh my gosh, we're really gonna see little Leia. I was obsessed. I love her so much.
She was really good and really endearing. I liked how they played her up more as an independent woman, even more so than Leia was played in the original trilogy.
Agreed. Love seeing those foundations of who she becomes.
That's a better way of putting it. Maybe I'll cut out all my bullshit and just have you say that.
Cinema Craptaculous is your podcast destination for all things movies, good and bad, streaming series, good and bad, and pop culture, good, bad, and the ugly. You get a totally different show every week, such as People Also Watched with Adam, Dave, and Tara. They're three industry insiders who always find the hilarity in the big budget feature and the lesser known feature you may have missed. There is, of course, the expanded universe. This is your place to geek out. John, Doc, and S'more are your geek experts to talk about what's going on in the world of streaming series, movies, superheroes, pretty much any showbiz geek topic, they're going to talk about it. And, of course, there's the show that started it all, Cinema Craptaculous, with Stephanie, John, and Dave. You don't even need to have seen the movies these guys talk about to have a good time. So what are you waiting for? Go and subscribe to Cinema Craptaculous wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.
What do you want to see in the future of Star Wars? What would you like to see coming out in 5-10 years?
Yeah, I would love to see, I think specifics. I would love to see what the world, how does the galaxy rebuild after the First Order? What does life beyond the sequel trilogy look like? Because I think that when you were talking about earlier, the fact that a lot of, and throughout Star Wars, the Skywalker saga truly is very poetic in terms of the way that it rhymes. And so you see that also in the way that the New Republic and the Jedi Order, Luke building a Jedi Order, but rather than building a new order, he's truly just trying to redo what they did in the prequel trilogy, but we know what happened to that. And similar things happen with potentially the New Republic. The way that the foundations of the Galactic Republic were still there, but were the foundations so flawed that something built on top of it was always inevitably doomed to fail. So it would be interesting to see, how do you rebuild something new completely? Mm-hmm. Is Rey going to build an entirely new Jedi Order after Rise of Skywalker? And what would that look like? Would Poe go on with Finn to build an entirely new Republic with Rose? And what does that look like? So I think that there's a lot to do in those worlds. So yeah, just broad, how do you rebuild something completely new? I think that's such a big amorphous question. But I think also specifics, I would just love to see, I just would love to see more women-led, female-centric stories, whether that's more female villains like we had with Reva, if there's a whole rebel cell that's just a bunch of like women, a squadron of pilots is just a bunch of women running a squadron during the Resistance. I would love to see the like sequel trilogy world built out a little bit more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those are big things. Is there any world where there's a rom-com? I think the closest Star Wars rom-com we've ever gotten is Attack of the Clones. And can we get a hard Star Wars rom-com, or like a hard Star Wars horror movie or something? Like really lean into those wacky genres out there. Does that exist in the world?
Yeah. I think I have a feeling we'll see more of a horror story one, and we have through Clone Wars. There have been episodes, but before we see a rom-com. But I would like to see that too.
Right? It's just like, I don't even know where you would begin, because there are so many. I don't think you can do a hard, just straight up rom-com. But like, is there some comedy? I don't know. Some. Or I don't know, action rom-com.
What about a Cheers-like sitcom based in the cantina?
Amazing. Immediately sold. There again,
Yeah.
that's the amazing thing about Star Wars is that there are so many the universe is so vast that there are so many different stories you can tell. And the advantage of having Disney Plus is that you can have your straight up Skywalker shows, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
And then you can have Andor, which is a completely different tone. You can have Mandalorian, which is a completely different tone. You can have Star Wars Visions, which is a completely different tone. You can start making movies that aren't necessarily, they don't have to be theatrical releases. You have this new platform to be able to release things that are smaller. So again, the possibilities are endless. And I think that it's a reminder that Star Wars is for everyone, because there is something in Star Wars that is for everyone. Not that everything in Star Wars is for everyone, but you can find something in there that speaks to you, which I think is really beautiful.
That is really beautiful and really well put. It's you just succinctly said what I've been trying for the past 6 months to say in developing this show. So thank you. I'm gonna steal that.
Steal it away.
What are 3 elements that make Star Wars to you?
Hope, number 1. Ooh, 2 more. Oh, this is such a good question. It's like I always think hope and then I stop there, but because that's like the biggest one. And I'm trying not to come up with other ways to just say hope, but to like actually think of something different. I think
doing what is right. And I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Maybe
I would include that in
that's
I think it's
under hope.
I think it's like that's under hope. I would say also like fearlessness in terms of like, yes, characters being fearless, but also like fearlessness in storytelling, and trying new ways to tell different stories and to go into different worlds. And then I would say I don't know if inclusion is, I don't think inclusion is the right word, but just like, I also don't want to say diversity because that's definitely not the right word, but
yeah,
it's
but I think
expansiveness of it. Expansive, I would say, because again, an ability to, I think that Star Wars in and of itself is becoming more inclusive day by day as we've progressed, the years have gone by, and different writers are coming in and adding, and directors and creators are coming in and adding their stories to canon. But I think in terms of the stories itself, the fact that there can be so many different kinds of heroes and so many different kinds of scoundrels and so many different kinds of villains. So yes, I would say the expansive nature of it makes Star Wars to me.
That's great. I love it. I always feel like when I originally thought of the question, I always feel like it's the music, spaceships, and lightsabers, But
yeah,
every time I ask that question to people, they come up with these like amazing things that are absolutely right.
That's awesome.
And that was very beautiful. And thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for asking.
I'm going to ask you straight up. What does Star Wars mean to you?
As I think I've been laying the seeds of it throughout the entire conversation. It means hope. It means, hope for tomorrow, hope that there is a new dawn, a new beginning, as Ahsoka says in Rebels, that you may not always see the sun, but it's always there. All of those lines about hope, and that it even when the day is darkest, that there is still hope on the horizon, and just to hold on to hope and fearless hope, and that doing the right thing will lead to a better tomorrow. So definitely that, for sure.
That's great. That's wonderful. And now my final question. You go to Skywalker Ranch, and there at the gates, George Lucas greets you. What do you say to him?
Oh my gosh. I just thank you. Like, I have no other, it's thank you for creating a world that means so much to so many people, and that inspires so many people to be better, to do better to tell their own stories. I know that stories that I write are influenced by things that I discover in Star Wars. And then also just for creating a space for like-minded people to just love what they love together and to create community. And that like he created a world that changes people's lives. And that is no small feat. And I don't think there's anything other to say than just pure gratitude and thankfulness that we can sit here and have this conversation because of the world that he created.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. Camila, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I don't have a sign off yet. Do you have any social handles or anything you want to plug? Things we should look out for your work?
I have a little I guess Star Wars related project that I would be happy to plug. I actually created a Star Wars narrative podcast back in my height of obsession of Star Wars when I was like, I love this so much, I need a creative outlet for it. And so I created a Star Wars narrative podcast, and it's called Beings of the Galaxy.
Okay.
It's streaming wherever pods are cast. And what it is an anthology series where each episode tells the story of a different being in the galaxy, of different person in the background, and how they are the heroes of their own stories. So you get to hear this. They're all original stories written by me, and they have different friends of mine, different actors who voice the different beings in the galaxy. And so one episode is the story of a cantina owner. One is the story of a tattoo parlor owner. One is the story of a young girl who lives on a research space station with her parents. And another one tells a story of this spaceport employee on Life Day who everyone's stranded there and can't get home. And this person has to help calm the crowds. So they're just different little slices of life in the galaxy that kind of speak to different stories that I've been thinking about. And yeah, so Beings of the Galaxy, wherever pods are cast, on Instagram at Beings of the Galaxy Pod, and then Twitter, Beings, I think it's Beings_ podcast. I think. But
social on it's always troublesome to like try to line up all the social to be the same. It's such a pain.
Exactly. But if you search Beings of the Galaxy on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it should come up. But there's 2 seasons streaming now, and I think there's I want to say there's 20-ish episodes total. So yeah, check that out.
Excellent. Well, I'll put a link in the podcast notes, and we'll call it out when we promote the show on socials as well. So
great. Thank you.
No, thank you. It is fantastic talking to you. It's very, I could talk all night about this. I appreciate that you joined me, told your Star Wars journey, and hopefully there'll be a part 2 in a year or two. And we can look back on Ahsoka and I can't say that word. Acolyte?
Yeah.
And again, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Such great questions. I haven't actually talked about Star Wars or in depth thought about Star Wars in a little minute, like I said, because I've been taking a step back. So it was actually really, really nice. And I kind of now want to go rewatch Rebels now, even though I know I shouldn't, but I kind of want to start it
now. So that's what Star Wars means to Camila Quinones. As I was editing this episode, I was struck by how she called out the idea of Rey starting the Jedi Order as something she wanted to see in the future of Star Wars. This was recorded in January, well before the announcements from Star Wars Celebration, and she absolutely must be living in Kathleen Kennedy's head. So anyone at Star Wars, if you're listening, Camila's a creative to look out for because she knows what you're doing. Are you excited for the new Star Wars movie featuring Rey and the Jedi Order? Do you think Kanan from Rebels is the embodiment of the Jedi? What was the Star Wars content that ignited your love for the franchise? Let us know and get in on the conversation on Twitter or Instagram at Star Wars Mean to You. That's at Star Wars Mean, the number 2 and the letter U. And hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. If you're liking the show, please give us a 5-star rating and review. And next week, it's author and podcaster Ben Acker. It's a really great conversation about his Resistance books, how his dad was the hero of one of his birthdays, and the fact that I don't know how to pronounce canonical. I kept saying conical, which is a completely different thing. One's a shape, and the other's the official history within a universe. But we're all here to learn something new, and that's what I did. So until then, the Force will be with you, always. Hi, this is Dave, and before we get to the show, I wanted to ask you a favor. One of our goals this year is to grow the show so that What Does Star Wars Mean to You reaches more listeners, and that's where we're asking you for help. And it's really easy. Wherever you listen to us, please hit that subscribe button. If you're liking the show, give us a 5-star rating and review on the platform you listen to us. We make a lot of fun of the algorithm and the smash that button thing, but it really does help us get noticed by new fans. And if you want to join in on the conversation, find us on social at Star Wars Mean to You. That's Star Wars Mean, the number 2 in the letter U. Now, let's chat some Star Wars.